Speaking of,
so here,
I was trying to catch Bear's speech there, but it
I'm sorry.
loaded too.
Would you like me to
Oh,
do it
God.
again?
No, it's okay.
I can.
well, I'm going to give blame to Seraphis. He didn't actually tell me that we were live, so I just thought, you know what, I'm popping in. It's already going on. I'm just going to rant it all out. Let's just begin it. But here we are. We are only 30 seconds in, and Seraphis, I've already given away all my good stuff.
Well, I think most of that was offline, wasn't it, Sarah?
Yes,
it
it was.
all was.
Yes.
Looks like you're going to have to re-rant, man.
What a shame.
Well, you see, the funny thing about what you were just saying, Sax, is that my DM hasn't caught on to that yet because he hasn't given me a second of downtime yet. Because as soon as that happens, he's going to see.
Yes.
So for context, so what Saxius was saying is that when you introduce a artificer into your D&D game or any game for that matter, it drastically changes the tone and of the game.
Yes.
That's what everybody missed. Yeah.
And I believe that's the topic of tonight's session. Topic, isn't it, Seraphis?
Something like that.
Something
Brian
like
wants Game Masters. Damn it. Both of you.
Well, so the topic, to my understanding of tonight, is that we're going to be talking about the introduction of Artificers into your campaigns, the impact it's going to have for you as a player, and then the impact for the DM it's going to have, as well as the wider context for what is going to happen across the world that you're going to be having. Because an Artificer, being the specific class designed to generate magical items, usually disposable items, does change the game. Because previously, a lot of the loot and the disposable items are at the behest of the DM that can give them out with a controlled measure. They have control, that final say of what the players are going to be having to have, meaning any shenanery that the players do is at the fault of the DM because they should know what they give them. When an Artificer is there, you lift these restraints. The moment an Artificer acquires time, experience, and gold, you allow them to sit down, gather up their resources, and they will make war crimes. That's the pure and simple of it. It's
Look,
fantastic.
It's never a war crime the first time.
Listen, in most fantasy worlds, this convention does not exist. Ergo, it's perfectly legal.
That's just because in these fantasy worlds, Canada doesn't exist.
I know. See, that is the fault of the DM for not thinking, how can we introduce the Canadian war ferocity into a world so that the rest of the world has to go on.
I call them halflings in my setting.
So
quiet little farmers in the hills just minding their P's and Q's, and then you went and riled them up, and now you got 3.5 feet of terror and war crime heading your way. Well done.
Yeah, sounds about right. But bringing it back to the destruction that you're going to have from Artificers, because it is the rules are usually made in a way that makes it simple for the Artificers to say, right, I have gold to acquire resources. Depending on the system, 3.5, you have to spend your own XP. I don't believe you have to do that in Pathfinder. It's just gold. Seraphis, you've got more insights on that one. It's been a while since I've done. Go on.
Pathfinder, I don't play Pathfinder.
Oh, okay. Well, 3.5, you have to spend gold as well as XP. Pathfinder.
Unless you're an Artificer, you have a crafting reserve.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
In 3.5, you have the Artificer has a crafting reserve.
Yes.
It's a separate pool of experience that doesn't take away from their level.
Right, sorry, I'm just thinking, because I've mainly done crafting magical items from the clerics and wizards, where there's a XP amount they have to do. Anyway, that's good to know.
I'm currently up to 2,000
oh, you
reserve.
disgusting man. Anyway, my point is that I'm snailing my way towards, until I'm interrupted, is that effectively the Artificer gathers up these resources, and then with his crafting reserves, with his gold, and with, more importantly, downtime, he is able to sit down and make disposable magical items, anywhere from the alchemical, healing potions up to scrolls of lightning bolts and firebolts, assuming that he's got the capabilities of getting that far. And you can get a bit more funky from that, because I have seen one of my artificers make effectively a railgun, where he would just shove in different crystals depending on what damage he needed to do, anywhere from necrotic damage to lightning damage, fire damage, and it just goes on from there. You can go on to then be creative and go, well, I just need goggles that will allow me to either see further, see in the dark, all these additional things. And the fun does not stop there. It can go as far out as, using my Red Hand of Doom, my artificer in that game basically took a wagon, turned it into a miniaturized tank with self-reloading, what are they called, crossbows on the top, with infused, well, again, another player played a demon, so he infused imps into them to then become the targeting mechanisms, and then they just rode in whenever they needed to, just going. Now, this is high-level stuff where I just allowed the players to do this. Why? Because I needed to see how far we could take that. But this is where the DM needs to sort of understand what they have allowed in. They have now allowed in the equivalent of Tony Stark. Tony Stark will start engineering and testing the limitations of what this world will allow him to do and how far he can push himself before the Wizardry Order is going to come in and go, that's a no-no. And by that point, it's probably too late.
See,
anyway, that's my introduction.
You could have made a video out of that, right?
Oh, it'll come. Don't worry.
I prefer just showing up to people's streams, just like going, here's all these things, and then fly off into the darkness.
One of the other fun things about my current 3.5 game that I'm unfortunately a player in is that, my DM hasn't realized a lot of this stuff yet, and he keeps being surprised by things I keep kind of whipping out with the infusions. So I think it's starting to slowly dawn on him that when downtime finally happens, because it's 3.5, it's
yeah,
it takes a while.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be really, really, really discouraged by the first round of things I'm going to be making.
I like that, Seraphis. First round, meaning that there's a pyramid order of how you're going to be building things up to your apocalyptic doomsday end level.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was talking with Game Masters, like, my doomsday...
Tell them what your doomsday is.
I'm going to make Gamera.
Gamera children
is a construct. It was made by Atlanteans. Yes.
No, Gamera is a good guy. Please don't corrupt him.
I'm not going to corrupt him.
The wrong stream for that.
Clearly, once again, I must be the voice of reason. This is not a good situation for our world if I'm the voice of reason. Anyway, keep going.
Yes, X.
I just want to remind our viewers here, if you scroll back about 15 seconds, just watch Seraphis's glint in his eyes as he goes. These are the individuals that when you as a DM allow for artificers, these players will stand out with this level of enthusiasm because they can't curb themselves. They will show themselves, and you will understand, again, speaking from years of experience, certain things will just make the player giggle and go, I want to play this. They will never be subtle about it, which is your first red flag if you don't want this. And if you're willing to take this on and willing to accept what is about to come on board, just my suggestion is to embrace it, allow the artificer to be ridiculous, and well, at this point, you are, as Slan has said in the comments, you are not in a low magic setting anymore. You are well and truly in the high level fantasy and high level magic, where it is going to get a bit ridiculous. It is better to play into that and have fun with it than to watch it and think and fight against the current, because you as a DM would have allowed this in. This is now an open field. Again, watch Seraphus's glint in his eyes as he is just happy.
So the question I would have, because I never played enough 3.5 Eberron for an Artificer to, do anything. Actually, I don't think we ever used an Artificer, but isn't that technically the domain of the GM to limit, what resources do they end up having access to? So like they should be going to the GM and saying, hey, I plan on making this because I'm an artificer. It's what I do. And the GM being like, oh, so you need a pearl of some kind. Cool. That's going to be the next 8 sessions of play, you trying to find this pearl. Yeah.
Why are you stonewalling your player like that? Why are you such a bad DM? Oh my
God!
I
thought we were gatekeeping.
No. To be fair, my DM uses 2nd edition rules for things
magic
required
crafting.
For magic crafting.
Okay.
The unfortunate thing is that I have joined an epic level game. Dun dun. We're all dwarves. Dun 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 dun. And we currently own a mountain full of treasure. Dun 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 dun. 3 strikes. I don't have to worry about this kind of stuff. These guys, I have promised them things. Simple things. Trinkets. And they have gone, oh yeah, we'll give you your resources.
So to also maybe work into Brian's comment, 3.5 does have the whole mechanic that basically removes the need of needing the specifics. 3.5 specifically looks and says, here's the mechanics for the Artificer, here's the XP that they're going to expend, here's the amount of gold that they require, because unlike always our old school essentials, Sec AD&D games, where you need to go out and acquire, mystical and magical items to generate the items that you want. In 3.5, they've streamlined it by basically saying, here's a bunch of numbers that you've got in different pools. You can basically buy them, expending these resources to acquire this back. There is a breakdown for each magical item in terms of its gold value and the XP value that you can acquire for them, or that you would need to expend to generate said item. But that is how 3.5 goes about it. What Seraphus's DM, to my understanding, has done is that he's keeping the older D&D version, where you need to have some form of, like the scale of a red dragon to make fire-resistant armor. You need to have, a pearl of a certain value to generate, a gem of true seeing, these sort of things. So there are still limitations, but this is where, again, a good player are going to step up, as you said, and say, Mr. DM, Miss DM, this is what I would like to do with the character. Heads up, how can we work this in? And then that's a good way that you can bounce it back and forth. That's cooperative player and DM. That's assuming that the DM doesn't fully know, and in which case, a good player will warn them what they're intending to do, so that they can be you can work within any constraints, and the DM might say, you know what, I think this might not be fun, or I don't know how this is going to work out. We can give it a test. If I don't like it, can I pull you aside and talk with you later? And then this is where communication becomes key, because you can quickly, I don't want to say break, but you can most certainly change the tune and the environment that the DM has created. And that might not be to their liking, because again, as has been mentioned several times over in other streams, the DM is a player as well. They want to have fun, and it's something for them to enjoy.
So, Gur, have you gotten up to the part about manifest zones in Eberron?
I haven't read it for a while. I've been distracted.
Okay. So in Eberron, there are things called manifest zones, which are
Oh, that's where
Essentially-
the plane bleeds over into the natural world.
Yes. And in
Which, like, Sharn is built on like
Yep.
the air manifest zone, which is why they can have skyscrapers, because everything's quote unquote lighter.
Yeah. Interesting point. Did you know it was actually built by the Goblin Empire?
I think I remember reading that
Yeah.
at one point. It's been
That's-
many years.
I find that amusing. So they've got the spells and stuff required for opening manifest zones in Sharn and in Secrets of Salona. And, well, you just kind of need to know the planes in the area that you're in to be able to create those manifest zones. And then if you, I don't know, create a sigil rune that locks it into place, it becomes permanent. And then you've got a way to permanently infuse, I don't know, a garnet with fire elemental power that you can then use to create fire resistance items or fire producing items.
Right. No, I
Streamline the process.
Wow, that sounded like it hurt, Brian.
no, it's one of those things where it's like I guess just my lack of experience, for lack of a better way to put it, just comes down to, like, I don't do that math, basically. Like, oh, if I do this, and this, I just created a nuke in D&D and I win whatever, the GM throws up against us.
Oh, see,
But-
I'm not going to do things like that.
But you
That's
can.
too easy.
No,
Yeah.
No, like there are certain things, absolutely. I mean, but then let's maybe take it a step back. In old D&D, if you took a portable hole and a bag of holding and yoinked them together, we all know that generates an explosion that throws people within a certain radius. Either they die, or they now find themselves in the astral plane. So we all know that that's the effect of these two. I'm gonna take the silence as yes.
Something like that, yes.
Yeah, something like that. So there are players who have basically gone, right, the portable hole we can fold down to basically the size of a napkin. We can tie that around an arrow. The bag of holding we can tie around the head of an arrow. By the use of either strength, enlarge, or other spells, you can basically make that into or tie all of this onto an arrow and just yoink that over at your enemies. And then now you've just made a disposable grenade against monsters that are just like, well, that's a Death Knight, don't want to deal with that. Yoink. Done. So even in the older versions, these things existed. However, it was then down to the players to finding these loopholes, either through reading the DMG or being insane enough to try these things. The whole,
I'll take it a step further.
Sure.
What if, and this is a what if situation, like the comic book, what if every magic item that has ever existed was created by an artificer, going all the way back to the very first magic item? And or we could even say it was a group of artificers, did a global destruction in which everything was just completely annihilated and destroyed, except for those magic items, because they're impossible to destroy. Over the years, society obviously fell, it was destroyed, but pockets of people eventually began coming back into society, recreating society. And somebody, say, for example, Mordenkainen, this really powerful wizard, discovers this one artifact, claims he created it, so now it's named after him. Or Baba Yaga's dancing hut, claims that she made it, but she didn't. She found it because it was an ancient artifact created by an artificer that blew up the planet, and not in a literal sense of blowing up the planet, but just wiping out most populations. What do you
Well,
think
that's
about that?
cheery.
Well, I'm
Isn't
just
that
saying
just the waivers?
that's why I prefaced it with a what if.
I got you.
Isn't that
It's-
just the
it's-
weavers?
The what?
The spell weavers.
Yeah,
be.
spell
Yeah,
spell
could be.
weavers is a second edition creature who are this
I am-
alien looking creature that basically they specialize in creating magic, but as well as like creating magical items, and their entire stick basically revolves around that. They weave magic, they imbue it into items, and they are known to being the ones who sort of like go up towards level 8 and 9 spells for their creations, maybe even beyond. That is the sort of thing that they deal with. It's not a normal creature you introduce into your D&D campaigns. That's from that. I get what you're working towards, Brian. Effectively, that magic. The magical items were basically mass produced in this what if scenario by the artificers, and then all these things, these legendary items, are just throughout the years, just people forgot. Other people picked it up.
Rediscovered, yeah.
Yeah, they were rediscovered, renamed, repurposed for all of these other, aspects. Heck, taking Baba Yaga's heart, she could have done decorations to it so that it now looks like hers. It might not always have had the beak and the chicken legs,
Sure.
but she could now have changed that around. So it's one of those concepts that basically brings another layer of like world lore into it. But yeah, just quickly jumping into also what's being said in the chat. I like Slan's comment. That when magic is as prevalent as as an artificer could make it, there would also be changes for how magic is perceived and how it's regulated. But then this is then down to how often do you have an artificer, like in the world. If artificers are 0.01% of the world who are able to break through the science and magic, well, then they might not be as big of an impact. But they would then be terrifying creatures, even for wizards who might only be 10% of the world. But they would look at them and go, "You are not right. You should be kept aside and studied." But this is where, as a DM, you've got to look at the impact of an artificer has and have your own workings. So whoever picks the artificer, they should be coming in knowing what the mold is going to be like, and they can work within that. Go on, Seraphis.
So, in the world that I'm playing in, my artificer comes from Eberron.
Yep.
Served during the last war, and is now in a world that has never had an artificer before.
Right.
Except for the ones thousands of years ago that created all the magic items.
Oh, of course,
Well,
yes.
I mean,
In the world.
I do need to ask the blatant question here. Have you actually told your DM of everything that you're planning on doing?
About 85%.
Okay. So they're not ignorant of what you're capable of doing.
No.
Okay. Have you gone so far as to tell them the strength and weaknesses as well? Like the fact that like once you have downtime, these are the things that you will be looking to make.
Yes, he has
Okay.
requested a few things like don't overuse bags of holding or portable holes or things like that, which
Yeah.
I respect that.
Yeah.
That's fine. Because my first thing is that I'm going to be replacing my current weapon with a staff of greater dispel magic. Because this whole adventure, that's at will. So
Right.
it's unlimited uses. Because this whole adventure that we've been on has made me go, fuck everyone with a fucking magical item, but I want to keep their magic items, so I just need to turn them off for a little bit.
You want to have an EMP with you
Yes.
against magical items, which I get that. That makes sense. And as long as, again, so the point I was moving towards is that as long as you as an artificer are being transparent with the DM, you can work within their boundaries, and at the end of the day, they have ultimate say.
Yeah.
So that you work with their constraints, and that's the sort of relationship I would definitely say for anyone who picks up an artificer or goes down the route of making magical items. This is what you need to do.
I mean, I haven't told him about Gamera, but I mean,
yeah, but Gamera is apparently, like, from what I understand, that is months, if not years, down the line. Like, that is not something you're just going to be building overnight.
well, we've already been doing these 3 levels of a Giant's Keep for the last 2 years, so yeah,
So
probably about a decade in the future.
So you just build a time machine, go back in time, build it back in time, and then next week it's there.
yeah, but I'm gonna interrupt. Me as a DM, I would go, sure. You return back to your timeline, but you've now split the timelines. You're in the timeline where it didn't arrive.
Or ultimately, it did arrive, went completely rogue, and is now the major Tarrasque level demon problem of the campaign.
And has destroyed the world, and there's nothing left except for all the magic items.
You get out of here with that, you.
So, okay, so I do like, I like the fact that your DM, Seraphis, is using second edition rules for magic creation.
Yep.
So part of my homework was tasked in researching the Artificer was to check out the Tales of the Valiant version.
Ooh.
And there's a couple of issues that I have with it, and I'll read one of them. For example, is the Protean has the ability where you can imbue a weapon with the ability to change its damage type. When you successfully deal damage with the augmented weapon, you can replace the weapon's damage type with another type of your choice. Damage altered in this way is always considered magical for purposes of overcoming resistances and immunities. And I have no issues with that itself, but what it doesn't, where I get a little confused, and it may be buried somewhere else further in this book, but what it doesn't specify is, what do I need in order to change, for example, a weapon's damage type from, I'm assuming it means, well, it does say magical, but I'm assuming it's meaning like acid instead of fire damage, and not slashing instead of bludgeoning. I don't know what the difference. I mean, because it doesn't specify that type of damage.
So if you look, if you spend too much time on the Everyone Discords as I do, in the older section, they frequently chat about certain aspects of the Artificer. The main one being that they are essentially a quantum physicist, mechanic, engineer in a fantasy setting.
Right.
So when you think about the Mechanist in that regard, remember that in its class description, it's mentioning that it is a individual, a person who plays this class is someone who wants to open up the back of the universe, see how they work, see how all the parts work, and then change things to their will. So they're going to be using their shard of creation to fundamentally, at the core level, change the quantum property of that magical item.
But does it not require like anything? Like, okay, first off, let's establish what is it when it means that it's changing the damage type? Is it meaning literally changing it from slashing to bludgeoning? Or
it can do, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it could be that, or you can change a spell from, like, it can go from like being a sort of acid, and you can then change it around to being a sort of fire, a sort of electricity.
Okay, so
You're
it
able
could be either one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so second question to that is, in utilizing their shard of creation, does it require any material components to change that? No. Okay.
If you're talking about in the same way that 3.5 infusions work, no, because it will eventually wear off. This is a short-term effect that that changes the property for a time, and then it will eventually the universe corrects itself back to how it should be.
I was thinking in the sense of like doing it as a permanent thing.
As a permanent item, it would require material components and things like that.
So
but the augments work differently. They're like the infusions.
I would
Okay.
often equate a artificer as being a gadgeteer. They make disposable gadgets that can be used, like a one-time use scroll or a potion. They can then do things like, okay, for a limited time, you can now switch this sword to being a sword of fire to a sword of frost. But it's not a permanent thing. You can't switch back and forth, willy-nilly. You've got a time limit or a use limit every time you do it, and then once that runs out, he has to go back, expend resources in terms of his XP pool or gold to then redo all of this just for that short time to redo it. So there are, at least mechanically, there are things that prevents him from just cranking it out.
So are there instances in which they can create something that's permanent?
Yes.
Okay.
Much like a high-level wizard can create items that are permanent with permanency, they are able to do the same thing. Unlike a wizard where it is a spell component thing where you do all of these items, it is them having to gather up, much like with many other things, like raw quantities of resources, gold, XP, as well as special unique items. If the DM says, I want you to do this, then they have to go out and do this. So effectively they can do enchantments from a very beginning, but disposable enchantments.
So what I'm hearing then is I can create a mechanist artificer, whichever your term there is, that is essentially a toy maker. Y'all see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
That can create something like this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm in.
But that's the part of it, and you can then do various thematic things. You can do build-ins to it, and
I'm in. Let's make one.
My DM already knows I'm going that route. By the way, Game Masters, I've already said about. I've called it a puzzle box, but he knows exactly the properties and stuff.
Yeah.
So he knows I'm planning to have a extra dimensional room space in a little box. Yeah. However, I've also told him that the whole purpose.
I'll make another one.
The whole purpose of it is to capture the heart of a dead god.
Okay, let's
make another one.
So,
you do.
Just catch the heart of a dead god. I mean, when you go into that is like epic high level stuff. But you, Surface, you already know that is a very long term.
Well, Gamma is going to require, a power source.
Oh no, I'm not disagreeing. It makes sense that you would get a nuclear reactor from the heart of a demigod or a dead god. I'm not disagreeing with it. Hell, I'll encourage you to go on this kind of adventure. But this is sort of bringing it back to what I said earlier. When you are introducing an artificer, these are the sort of machinations you're going to be hearing and seeing. They're going to want to do this in order to basically bring about various insane things. And if you are very unfortunate, that player will also be an engineer.
Or watch too many engineering videos.
Oh, that. I mean, Seraphis, I'm just slightly calling you out here because you're fitting all the checkboxes.
Technically, I was trained to be an architect and graphic designer, so I.
Yeah, but you already like the math.
I mean, you could have an artificer want to create one of these.
that already exists in 3.5.
Saxius's point, if you're, and this is exactly goes into some of the comments that are being made in the comment section as well. If you're going to choose to play as an artificer, let me rephrase, as a DM, if you're going to choose to allow somebody to play as an artificer, you got to expect shit like this.
Yes, you got to expect that.
But I mean, how is it any different than like in a science fiction game, somebody playing an engineer?
Aha!
Go
Finally, something I can talk about.
I
I got bad news for you, kids. Your woo level D&D is not the level of D&D I ever enjoy playing when I do play it.
Real quick, Bear, I've never seen you go this long without chiming in. It's been 35 minutes.
What do you want me to say? I can talk bullshit if you like, but I would rather my words have meaning.
It's fair. I'm just saying.
To be fair, remember, this is Talking Drek. That's the whole point.
I don't speak Aussie, so I don't know what Drek means. I think it's off-brand Korean Judge Dredd, personally. You know, Judge Drek. I don't know. But anyway,
where did the term come from, Seraphis?
Shadowrun.
Shadowrun.
Yeah.
It means shit.
No wonder I don't know it. Dear Lord, that game. So let me just point out the T-shirt I'm wearing is the Mighty Turtle, which is from the Zenith universe, which is a character whose entire basis is Artificer with power suit made from military scrap, right?
Yeah.
Sci-fi superheroes really lend themselves well to the idea of the engineer making wonky, woo-woo, crazy stuff. Fantasy, I'm with Ye Old Geek when it comes to my fantasy. I absolutely despise when sci-fi stuff shows up in fantasy, such as psionics and artificers. I've run games with artificers, and they ruin the game. Because while the wizard is already a big enough problem to deal with in a fantasy game, now you got this little gnome running around, tinker, 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 pachoo, and you're just like, why do I even play in this fucking game anymore? That poor fighter is like, I hit things with my sword, and that's it. Engineers in sci-fi games are awesome characters because they can save the day with last-minute technology, which you expect in a sci-fi setting.
Yeah.
Gadgeteer characters. I'm sorry I'm putting you to sleep, Brian. My apologies.
No,
I'm bad, buddy.
But Bear, so just to break in for a second. In a sci-fi game, however, you're not going to see, say, for example, you're playing a game of aliens, right?
Sure.
In a sci-fi game, if you have an engineer, you're not going to see one of them create a Pokeball.
Okay, but in Star Trek you could.
Really?
Okay, so what I've done, boss, is I've cobbled together a micro transporter beacon, and what it's going to do is it's going to basically transport him into this device and keep his pattern in a replicated holding pattern until such time as we can get him back to the ship and then reform him and put him in the brig.
I mean, okay, that's a Pokeball. Yeah.
I think it's
wow.
I think the point is that it's got to make sense within like at least a sci-fi setting. Like there's got to be an explanation to it. Whereas in the magic setting, it's magic. I don't mind that, but Bear is right. In a sci-fi setting, you have got to explain yourself.
Right.
Yeah. So
well, you've opened my eyes to it. I that's not something that I would have ever honestly considered.
Now, Alien is not a sci-fi setting; it's a horror setting.
Well, okay, fair enough.
It just has sci-fi trappings.
Fair enough.
Star Trek is a sci-fi setting. But more importantly, the point I was going to make before you asked that very good and salient question was in superhero games, gadgeteers are bread and butter.
Yeah.
They are 100% part of the superhero genre, and they matter because they're the Mr. Fantastics. They're the what's his name? Oh my God, Fair Play, dude.
Iron Man.
No, Iron Man. Yeah, Mr. Terrific. Thank you. Jesus, I was like, what the hell's his name? Mr. Terrific, with his T-spheres and stuff like that. It's all part of superheroes, and it makes perfect sense, and it fits, and it doesn't overshine the idiot with the bow. Or the guy who's, I've got the secret of the white dragon fist, and that's what my powers are. It doesn't overshadow them. It blends and works and sort of it weaves in with them. In fantasy, I find artificers upset the balance. They very quickly overshadow everybody because they can just take the time as per, especially D&D, as per the rules, time needed to now make something wacky and woo-woo that'll save the day. So again, why is everybody else there? It's the same problem we have with wizards. Once you get wizards to a certain level, the only thing the rest of the party is there for is to act as meat shields.
So, Saxius, when you're running a game that has an artificer in it,
Yeah.
What would you do that still allows them to have that freedom of choice, that
What their creativity.
yeah, but without destroying the campaign or the adventure?
So I have had 2 campaigns where I've had artificers in there. One of them was a stress test, so I intentionally told the player stress the system, see how far you can push it.
Sure.
And that was fun, but like I knew what I was getting into. The other one was a more of a case of communication, as well as what Seraphis has been pointing out. I control the downtime. I control when they get back there because I can slow them down continuously. I can keep on throwing mooks at them. I can make them get lost in the dungeon. I can make them, have to roll for survival checks and, get lost in the wilderness and so on. So I control when they come back there. And I can also control things such as, the gold, the resources. There are ways for you to throttle and stop the artificer from getting the resources to push themselves over. But I find that the best way of controlling it is by basically going to the player. Hey, listen, I need you to be forward with me. I can be, going back with it. We'll have a back and forth talk because sometimes you might make things that might not work. And I'm going to ask you to pull it back, or we're going to just have it break. And then we do something else instead. So most players who go for the artificers are open enough to say, listen, that's fine, but you give me a shot at least, as long as that communication is going on there. But it is really down to, we have to remember the DM controls a lot of the resources, and they have to be mindful of how they are giving it to the group, because the artificer is going to be one to sort of use it and remold it, especially when it comes to giving out the disposable magic that they can break down and reuse for something else, or resources that they can then use to purchase items. And you also control the level of magic in the world. So there's a number of logistical things you would have to pop through, but the easiest answer really is just be transparent with the artificer and have side conversations with them.
Sure.
And it's no different than having the same conversations with the fighter, the cleric, and the wizard, just to make sure they're on the same page. So that's been my sort of experience when it comes to that. Unfortunately, I am going to have to pop out. I'm getting messages for other things, but I hope I've at least made my case for why I think that artificers are awesome, as well as some things you've got to watch out for if you let them run amok. So,
Great having you on, Sax.
Good to have you, Sax.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Bye, Sax.
Yeah, Game Masters. What I was going to say was there's 2 episodes of Star Trek, The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, that actually perfectly give reason for how, for example, a Pokeball could exist in Star Trek. One of them is is it the first or second?
The Dyson Sphere one?
No.
Well, so in
Moriarty.
Oh, yeah.
Moriarty, where they put him into
holodeck.
the
little
holodeck device.
Yeah.
And the second one is the DS9 episode where they have the transporter accident and everyone gets turned into hologram characters on Dr. Bashir's holodeck program with Garrick.
Yes and no. I mean, that one's a little bit of a stretch. I'd say you certainly could take brain fart.
Well, no,
Insurrection, where they have the tracker guns that the whatever the villains are called are using to shoot them, and as they get hit by these things, they get immediately transported to a prison.
Right.
So the sonar.
The sonar.
The Dyson Sphere episode, though, I mean, so the problem I have with those 2 examples is Moriarty, I mean, that's a hologram character just being put into another hologram matrix.
Yeah.
So a different.
But with the second example, that's
the second example is closer because they're using the hologram or the holosuite buffers to store the pattern.
Yes.
While they fix it.
If you take that concept.
How far you've come, you little nerd, from when we were playing Star Trek and you needed charts. And you just threw out the term pattern buffer without even looking it up.
That's like
impressed.
basic Star Trek
Whatever.
terminology.
Listen. I've got video evidence on my channel of how little your basic Star Trek knowledge was once upon a time, sir. So we're good now. You're really good.
Anyways, but I think the Dyson Sphere episode is actually a better example out of Next Generation, because that's
where
the one
Scotty kept himself in a replicative pattern.
yes.
It's the same thing.
No, I know.
Yeah, but it was a sphere.
No,
It was a big giant Pokeball.
There is also that, but no, but the hologram one again, it's something completely different. It's like me putting my Word document from the computer I'm on now to my laptop. There's no that's how I equate that. It's we're talking about putting a living creature into some sort of a stasis chamber that's much smaller than they are.
Yes, but with that, regardless of whether you go with the Scotty version or the DS9 runabout accident one, either way, they're being put into a
right. They're those two are equivalent. I'm just knocking out Moriarty because I think that was a bad example, but nice try.
Well, no, because in that episode they get him trapped into that storage device that's basically about yay big.
Yeah, but technically, anyways, again, I'm arguing because
Brian's point is that Moriarty is not a physical form, therefore it's just a file.
Yes.
Your argument is that you're saying a similar idea could be used if you take the DS9 mentality of shunting their consciousnesses into a pattern buffer while into a holosuite simulation while keeping their patterns locked in a transporter field. My explanation is you're both right, you're both pretty, you both should go to the prom.
That's
because
fair.
What you're talking about is the same thing.
Well, regardless, Star Trek has great examples of artificers. I don't like how you say artificers. I say artificers. Man,
That's because you're American.
That's fair. But I don't know. I think at the end of the day, it really does just come down to players needed. Well, I think it's more that the players are coming up with it more because there's probably a more adversarial GM as opposed to like a GM that's actually trying to work with all of the players. They're coming up with the pocket nuke because, well, the DM just threw, Godzilla at us. Well, I need Gamera. Otherwise, we're not going to take out Godzilla.
Oh, I hate how you say Gamera.
I've never really watched any Godzilla movies. So,
well, he's not in Godzilla movies. He's in Gamera movies. They're completely different movies, Brian.
Regardless, like traditional Japanese kaiju movies, I have not watched those.
So
and you don't know what we say a Kenny. Okay, that's fair.
I was about to say a Kenny.
I don't get it.
I don't get it. No, okay, so artificers, I think, in fantasy games ruin the game, personally. Ruin it, destroy it. They throw balance out the window. They have such godlike powers available to them that they lead to conversations like the one you guys were having about stealing the heart of a god with my Pokeball. And it's like, Meanwhile, I'm like, hello, I am Sir Nolan, the noble knight of the realm, and I am here by this sword to... What? The gods just happened, that mountain vanished. Like,
The mountain just got up and walked away.
The mountain grew legs. Why is the gnome grinning? It's terrifying to me, the way that this stuff goes, right?
You want to
But
know
I accept that it's a personal limitation of my own, that I can't stand sci-fi in my fantasy. I don't think it's a Reese's peanut butter cup. I don't think it makes the world better, I don't think it's like, ooh, but now we got sci-fi in our fantasy. Everything's even better. Hi, Beans. Hi. Oh my God. Hello.
See, I don't necessarily consider an artificer.
I'm done for a while.
I don't necessarily consider an artificer sci-fi in your fantasy. Like Brian was saying earlier, it's the magic items have to come from somewhere. You
There's
know,
a difference between a magic item and an artificer. Look up the difference between the two. They're not the same thing. Magic items are something that mages can eventually create. Artificers are tinker gnomes on crack.
Again, I want to reiterate, I'm playing a dwarf, not a gnome.
A tinker dwarf on crack.
Yeah, you want to be a tinker gnome. You just didn't have the balls to do it. It's okay.
No, it's just because it's a dwarf party.
Oh, so it's like day 73. There's this gnome with a yarn beard. They still think I'm one of them.
I mean, to be fair, they're dwarves. They're really just focused on, is it a magical item? Can I take it? Is it gold? Can I take it?
I'm telling you, man, that's what I'd be doing. I'd be working with the GM to eventually have the massive reveal that I've been a gnome all along.
There is actually a gnome in the party. He's the bard, and he has a beard. And I'm not sure whether the rest of the party know he's a gnome, or whether he's been hiding the fact that he's a gnome because he's got a long beard.
Yes. Oh.
Hey, excuse me.
So that trick has kind of already been done in the party. So, I've got to think of something
window
else.
of opportunity, sir.
Well,
Yeah.
what none of them realize is they're actually all gnomes.
They're actually all gnomes.
They all have beards.
They're actually all just halflings with pituitary issues.
Coolest gnomes alive.
But yeah, I my main issue with the Artificer, again, not having run into them where they were a problem, is it just didn't seem like an adventuring class. You're an artificer. You're wanting to build stuff. If you're adventuring, that means you're not near your shop to build stuff.
Oh, no, but now with WotC 5, you can just have a pocket workshop that you created, and now you have a little workshop that you carry around with you everywhere you go, because aren't you special and there are no
Well, and
limitations.
that's what the Shard of Creation is in Tales of the Valiant. It's basically just a...
I was being a smug asshole, and you just proved it. Ooh, that's not good.
So, Brian, counter to that, though. Oh my god, it just disappeared.
If you're going to use the example of, well, you have to go out and get your materials, it's like you're working on stuff in the shop. You hire a group to go get it for you.
Amen. Artificers should be bloody quest givers.
Sorry, I remember now.
quest.
So, Indiana Jones, right?
Yes.
And the Temple of the Pokeball?
And the Temple of the Pokemon.
So, he's an archaeologist, but he's predominantly a teacher. But yet, he goes out to do stuff, right?
Right.
In Eberron, why do artificers travel? Why do they become adventurers?
Because
My
they need
guess would be to
stuff.
find materials to make stuff.
No. It's to travel to Zendrick to pry through the ruins of the giants to find lost artificer knowledge.
I mean, yeah, okay, that's fine. But what if that... But I mean, clearly in your case, that's not what the adventure is. You just got sucked into an alternate dimension.
Well, no, he got lost into an alternate dimension because essentially he comes from a timeline about 16 years after the last war, right?
Okay.
So the nations have begun experimenting with Spelljammer technology, and his ship succeeded and then disappeared. Disappeared because they got yoinked off.
That means something completely different here.
That means something completely different on this side of the Pacific, sir.
Well, I can't help that the Northern Hemisphere is weird.
So there's a bunch of robots here.
Yeah,
say
yeah,
robots. They're not robots. They're Colossus.
Colossi.
yeah. You know
Colossi.
that region doesn't exist on any previous Eberron map, right?
I know. I
yeah,
know.
that pisses me the fuck off.
What is that
Well,
from?
and the whole history of it, it just didn't.
No,
What is
because
what is that
It
from?
was frustrating.
Vecna Eve of Ruin 5e.
Yeah, Vecna Eve of Ruin. That's what my players are currently going through right now. Or actually, they just finished it. They just finished that section.
And that's meant to be a region of Corvair where there was supposedly a big battle of Warforged Colossi. Which, how? Because the nation of Cyre controlled them all. So, did they have a civil war during the last war at some point?
Hold on.
Not that was ever recorded.
Hold on. You're assuming that Wizards is, consistent with previous lore at this point.
Especially not with 5th edition.
So then you're asking the wrong questions.
Ouch! Wow, you just turned into Jodie Foster on the last season of True Detective. Ooh, ask the right questions.
But more to the point.
Look. Outside of Eberron, do Artificers make sense in, say, Forgotten Realms? Everything makes sense, but say in Greyhawk or Nentir Vale or Thunderspire Rift or whatever the hell these settings are.
I would
In
say
Greyhawk,
they can.
sort of.
Yeah.
Oh, here you go.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, they can make sense, but along with that, I think comes a great deal of limitation. You just can't have them running, willy-nilly free like what you would see in Eberron.
Like, if we go back to, TSR days, the Gnome Artificers were restricted to being a advanced specialization of wizards. So you had to be a high-level wizard first. And then they kind of originated around Greyhawk and Dragonlance. Because, you had the psychotic gnomes in Dragonlance making things that keep blowing up. But yeah, like, it kind of makes sense around those areas. But, like, the Artificers gnomes of Dragonlance are known to be chaotic, and their stuff works half the time.
Once again, proving my theory that all garbage in D&D starts in Dragonlance.
So when an artificer is crafting something similar to like when a wizard or a mage or even a warrior makes an attack, there's a chance that when that warrior makes an attack, there's a chance it's going to miss the target. When that wizard casts a spell, there's a chance that spell is going to miss.
Yep.
Likewise, when an artificer is trying to craft something, is there a built-in mechanic that? And I haven't been able to see this. I haven't been able to locate that mechanic in Tales of the Valiant. So, forgive me if there is one. I just haven't been able to find it yet. Is there a built-in mechanic that allows for the possibility of a failure in crafting something?
As far as I can tell, in just applying things, no, it's
just automatic.
Essentially a 100% success, only limited by how many things you can have augmented.
Gotcha.
But it does seem to still work on the property of if you're trying to augment something and someone dispel magics that, it's going to disappear.
Yeah, like at second level, you can have up to 3 augmented items. Level 11, it's up to 5. You hit level 8, 17 and more, it's up to 7.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, like, there is that bit of... It doesn't always... it's always going to work. But, yeah, it can... While you're in the process of doing that, you could be counterspelled, basically. So, but I mean, with that, you can always just try again because augments have an unlimited number of uses.
Gotcha.
Only limited by how many things you can have augmented. But yeah, it does have its own limitations, but none of those augments are things that you're directly attacking someone else with. You've got to do something to an ally's weapon or an ally's armor to
the only
buff them, basically.
limitation that I've found states that, and again, this is in Tales of the Valley, and I keep saying Artificer, it's the Mechanist.
The Mechanist, yeah.
But it's same thing. The only limitation that I've been able to find reads, if the object you create is of an appropriate size to be worn or held, you can choose for the object to appear in your hand or on your person. The total value in gold pieces of an object created can't be more than 20 times your Mechanist level. That's about the only limitation that I've been able to find. I mean, it's a pretty damn powerful class to play.
Yeah, and I do think that's one of the problems that, based off of everything that we've talked about, that there aren't any limitations. I want to make like going back to 3.5, at 7th level, they gain the ability to craft wands.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to make a wand of fireball. Look, I made a wand of fireball.
Right.
There's no penalty. There's no chance of it blowing up in your face.
And that goes back to my example of, I want to create a box that opens a gate to hell and summons demons forth, or I want to create a giant turtle that will wreak havoc on everything. I mean, that's what I'm talking about, is in limitation. I mean, it just, I don't know, it's a little mind blowing to me.
Actually, there is a limitation. So with item creation, because a artificer doesn't have spells to be able to imbue, they've got to replicate the spell. They've got to do a spellcraft check for replicating that spell effect into the item. So if you, in 3.5, if you make that roll and you don't go above the required spellcraft DC, then you fail making that.
So, okay. So, and this is pretty cool. So, assuming that I make the roll and it passes, or I succeed, I don't know if there's a difficulty level or a specific number that needs to be rolled, but assuming that I make that roll, then it stands to reason that I should be able to.
Apparently, Brian is leaving.
Wow.
Sarah, because you didn't have to kick him out.
Seriously, Sarah. I mean, just because he doesn't love Gamera like all children, why did you have to throw him out?
Well, if I was going to kick someone for not liking Gamera, shouldn't I have done Gur?
It's not that I don't like, I just don't have any connection to.
Just don't understand or have any comprehension of.
Yes, that's more appropriate.
You're such a Kenny, Brian.
You are. You are. No, he's not a Kenny. No, you know why he's not a Kenny? Because Kenny's running around going, actually, blah, blah, blah. Oh, wait. No, you are a Kenny. Oh. Oh. Oh, Grr, you're a Kenny. You're the reason the heroes have to go back into the danger all the time because you can't keep your shit together.
Nope. Oh. I went for the Seraphis ending. We know he had to go, but he would I figured he'd finish his sentence.
So rude. Just rude.
Well, okay, so if you failed the crafting check to make your item, do you lose your experience? Do you lose the gold? Do you lose all the stuff that you put into it?
If you fail to craft it in the crafting time, then yes, you lose the resources you've put into it. That is the game I'm playing, so that is the reason why I have to be pretty sure about the stuff I'm crafting to make sure I can make my rolls. Because if it was like last game where I was rolling nothing but ones, I'm not going to try crafting that week now, am I?
Yeah, sorry. I just found the item creation rules for the Artificers. So,
Yep, page 32.
I don't know. It's to me, it just seems like if it's going to be used as a GM, I would be keeping an eye out for nukes and like temporal displacement or whatever. Just all the stuff that it's like, okay, this is going to ruin the campaign, and just shut it down and say it's like, okay, I know you can do that, but for this campaign, I'm not allowing it. You want to make a wand of fireballs? Great. You want to make, a potion of magic armor? Go right ahead. You want to make the blood plague and, eliminate this continent? Sorry,
Elves
I'm not
from
going to
the
allow
planet?
it.
To be fair, so I do expect after our first amount of downtime that my GM is going to go, yeah, we need to have a conversation. And that's going to be fine because then he's going to know what I can do and what I'm crazy enough to think of.
Prepared to do.
But I have a feeling that he's already considering that because this last session, we got nothing but cursed items that none of us can use.
I like
They
your
are
GM
only...
I like
Huh?
your GM.
Yeah, because the only thing that they are really good for is for me to strip into craft reserve by retain essence.
Okay, so I mean, so he's planning on you use it, which
Yeah.
again I think is fine. Just if I were him, I'd have a quote unquote no nukes policy.
He does. I
Good.
mean, it's kind of in place because, I mean, and that's another thing. When I joined the game, originally playing one of the other characters, Cleric, the wizard already had a Pokeball. We trapped a great worm white dragon inside of it as the finishing to that fight. So we currently have a crystal Pokeball that's containing a great worm white dragon that if anything happens to that thing's going to pop out and murder.
Da, da, da.
Sorry. And murderize us, basically. Because it took everything we had and greater planar ally reinforcements from our cleric's god to take that thing down. And even then, we didn't actually kill it. We just trapped it inside the bull.
I mean, that's what the next episode is for.
Well, that was 2.5 years ago, so
It's just a plot hook to be revisited. It's fine. So,
yeah, I think they've got plans for it, but I don't know what they are because they're just as insane as I am, but different because they would rather trap
insane. They're other insane.
They would rather put a evil, angry, great worm white dragon into a Pokeball rather than kill it. Which, why?
Well, yeah, because down the line they're thinking, hey, when we have to fight that other thing, great ancient great worm red dragon, I choose you. And it was like turn around. No, let them do it. And then the minute they pop that thing out, the dragon just turns around and goes, worms, and nukes them. Because it's been angry that it's been kept in a replicative pattern buffer for so long that it just fucking hates them. And it's like, literally, we're just going to fight this demon. Let's use our Dragon Ball. Boom. Ha ha ha. And the dragon goes, demon, I'm with you. High five. Let's kill these fuckers. Like, players do this level of player thought is always something I have a problem with. They think that just because something works, those creatures have no agency, no identity, and no concept, even though they're intelligent creatures, and will just do whatever the players want. Well, unless you found a way to bind that dragon to your will by having an artificer put a collar of control on it, fuck those players. Nuke them the minute they think they pull out their great, we've been waiting for this moment, now we're going to show you, DM, we win the game, boom! Why is Charizard eating my testicles? What the fuck is going on?
Actually, it's funny that you bring that up. There's a book that's aimed at GM's advice that I've been kind of curious about, but that actually, your comment makes me even more curious about it. And it's the title's essentially "The Monsters in the Dungeon Know What They're Doing," and so essentially it's
amen.
Right. I believe it's like, oh, here are tactics and things for kobolds to do, or here are how orcs would behave, which I think would be a decent resource. But yeah, your point about, yes, toss out the great white dragon, it'll be fine. Yes, it's only been in there for 2 years.
He hasn't had 2 years to think about his revenge on us. No,
dragon wouldn't do that.
He's been catching up on his reading. Come on.
Technically, he in game time, he's only had about 6 days.
Oh, because that will make him less pissed off.
Right, exactly. No, he just hasn't gotten to the elaborate plan. He's got the plan, just not the elaborate plan.
I was working on a way to destroy your ancestry by traveling through time and removing you from the whole existence. But as I've only had 6 days, I guess I'll just have to use my fire breath to destroy you.
Exactly.
You know what's really funny? The wizard has already requested a rod of control construct from me. And I'm like, he knows I'm going to be building constructs. I have a feeling he's going to eventually use that against me.
So why don't you build a rod of wizard controlling construct that has a little code word in it that when he turns around and goes iggity biggity boo and tries to use it on you, it goes bwomp and then jumps into your hand. You now control his bitch ass.
No. What I'm going to do is...
Did you play Vampire, Seraphis? Did you ever play Vampire?
No, I played Mage.
That's the problem. Vampire teaches you to pretend you're working with people and then fuck them over to your advantage.
Oh no, that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. It's just I'm going to be putting a seal on the rod so that it can't affect my constructs.
Yeah. Okay.
That way he can still use it, and if he uses it on another construct, it will be like, oh, hey, this works. But as soon as he uses it on mine, it doesn't work.
See, I just prefer the one where he tries to use it and it immediately takes him over, and it's now a rod of controlling that bitch.
All right. On that note, I am being.
I gotta go to.
I get to go get dressed for church. So, gentlemen, have a wonderful day, and we will talk next time.
See ya.
Bye, grr. And Sarah, I got to take my leave of you as well. So thank you for having me on this morning, and I will leave you to your machinations.
To be alone.
Oh well, you are from Australia. It's the natural state of things. Isolated all the way out there in make-believe land.
Bye-bye. I guess I'm all alone now. Well, yes. That was... I'm not quite sure if that was out. That was productive or not, but yeah. Wow. I think we actually... Tell you a story. Okay, would you like to hear the story of how I spent 8 hours and we killed 5 creatures? That was tonight's D&D. That was a long game. Surprisingly, we started late as well, so that was odd, and finished early. That was yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. Wow, wow. Yeah, sorry, it's after midnight here already, so technically it's Monday. So, yeah, that was yesterday. Yeah, no, we fought. What was that? A Viking Jarl with his 4 honor guard, who were enlarged to large size, and they were all undead, mummified. Yeah, Viking warriors, which would have been a hard fight, except our cleric decided to use his scroll of mass heal, cast a level 25, and it killed 3 of the honor guard. So we had 1 honor guard and the Viking Jarl left to deal with, and they ended up going down like bitches because even though they were mummified. They had what's that? Embalmed body. So they had a natural damage reduction of 15, I think. And oh man, I should paid closer attention. Unfortunately, I got charged immediately. My character got charged immediately, and he got dropped down to 2 hit points, and that was a holy Hail Mary pass, because like at the last second I remembered that I had damage reduction of 5, and that allowed me to save by 2 basically. So yeah, my dwarf artificer had to crawl out of being in the sorry, I had to crawl out during the middle of combat, and yeah, that was a whole thing. And yeah, thankfully the team leader, who's a fighter, Imitation Thor basically is what I'm calling him, the team's main frontline infantry, who I'm going to call Chaotic Stupid, and his and his son, who's a stone child. Don't ask. He boinked a Dow basically. They ended up pushing the last 2, the Viking Jarl and the Honor Guard, back away so that my character could get out. And oh my god, almost dying was not fun. But then the cleric did that 250 point mass heal, which took out 3 of the Honor Guard, knocked the other 2 down a lot. I'm not even going to touch that one, Gots. Seriously, that is I imagine it would, yes. But yeah, they were able to push stuff away, and basically all the magic items that we ended up recovering were all cursed, which is why I'm thinking that the GM is basically already planning that the artificer in the group is now going to be handling a lot of the magic item requests and upgrades and stuff for the party, because basically this stuff is evil, and or if we try to use it, will retaliate against us. So yeah, I'm thinking that the DM is already planning on. Well, yeah, pretty much. Well, no, wait, hold on. What do you mean by don't need to make magical items? I don't need to collect magical items because I can just make them. I walked into that one, didn't I? To be fair, kind of magical duct tape is already on my list of things to make in 3.5. The Dungeonscape. Dungeonscape for 3.5 has a bunch of just useful items in it that can be enhanced magically, and I've already got a list of things I'm planning on manipulating there. But Indian for tea. That's what's doing it. Oh man. Yeah, I can tell it's late. I am not able to keep concentration on what I'm talking about. It's not good. Oh, jeez. But yeah, a lot of the. Oh, that's what I was going to. One of the main magical items I plan on grabbing is a rod of ropes, which can be used as a rod that can extend I think it's up to 100 feet rope, or a grappling hook and rope, which can Batman basically a grappling hook line attach, and you can make your way up, or a grappling hook zip line, and that's all relatively normal, understandable, yada stuff. What's interesting is that at no point, I mean, this is in Complete Scoundrels, the rod of ropes specifically. So they probably had an idea, but I don't think they had an idea that connected with the Artificer, or at least Artificer-like players, because the hold on. It's in 5e, the only spells an Artificer needs are Mold Earth, Bonfire, Catapult, Plant Growth, and Fabricate. Between those, you can pretty much be an absolute unstoppable engineer. Well, see, a couple of those aren't a spell in 3.5, and Fabricate works differently in 3.5. So, yeah. But what I was getting at was a rod of ropes as extending a line of rope, basically like flicking out like a fishing line. You can also use the rod as a spell storing item up to a 4th level spell. Any 4th level spell, like Fireball. So, store a 4th level spell in there, zip it out, drop it, and then trigger the Fireball away from you and just like, yeah. There's also I believe Dispel Magic, basic Dispel Magic is a 3rd level or 4th level spell. So you could just as easily be like, oh, that thing over there is dangerous. Spell storing item, flick it over, trigger it, and poof. Like, basically, this is what I'm going to be doing with the Rod of Ropes, is just using it as a spell storing item and just continually using it to boo boo. Like, it's basically going to be my replacement. Like, the replacement idea of a 10-foot pole, essentially, from original D&D. But this is like multi-purpose. Now I can 30 feet off in that direction and then set off a fireball. Like, yeah. I'm going to go insane with that one, honestly. That's going to be fun. Again, though, thankfully, none of the other players or the DM know I stream like this, unless one of them suddenly pops up in the chat, in which case. But yeah, like this is some of the crazy ass stuff I've got planned for that game, and that's gonna be a lot of fun, honestly. Gus, what are we going to do with you? Oh, okay, hold on. So here's a good reason for why 5e in general sucks, but 5e Artificers are even worse because they've basically turned them into a one-trick pony of being Iron Man, right? Whereas, you know, my guy is essentially a Hortificer. He's basically designed around being able to create constructs, lots of constructs, and having them fight for him. But see, and also the way that they changed infusions in 5th edition absolutely fucking sucks too, because I'm just gonna say it, that they fucking suck. And giving them a spell list as well, like, why not just make the infusions the spell list? It doesn't make sense to double it up like that. But I mean, I have more of a problem with the what's it called? The direction they took their specializations with, because you've got the battlesmith, the alchemist, the armorer, artillerist, I believe. Like, sort of. But like, those were all build types, or build. Yeah, I guess build types. Build types from 3rd edition. Whereas with other classes, all their specializations are based around prestige classes that were around. It makes no sense that the Artificer in 5th edition then went on to, like, designing it with all of its specializations being based on build designs is absolutely stupid. When, you had, for example, the Renegade Master... sorry. The Renegade Master Maker, which was essentially an Artificer. It was best utilized by an Artificer who was essentially augmenting himself or herself with Warforged parts, and the end result of that is them becoming a living construct, a Warforged, but with certain enhancements and extra abilities. So it always annoyed me that the Renegade Master Maker wasn't part of the 5th edition specializations, because that seems like a perfect one to go with. Another one was the Kenneth Wonderadept, which I have no idea why they didn't go with that one, because the Kenneth Wonderdept is basically the perfect artificer blastificer. Someone who's using wands, dual wielding wands at that, to blast enemies, and is able to not only naturally enhance the wands that they're using, but as I said, dual wielding them. Like, it doesn't make sense that they would not have that as a artificer archetype, and I mean, what was it? I mean, they've got the alchemist, but it's not the same as the alchemist in third edition, 3.5 in Eberron, because that was the alchemist savant, and they were the end result of alchemist savants are basically Jekyll and Hydes, which is absolutely phenomenally hilarious. So the alchemist savants are basically able to create potions and brews and things like that faster than normal, and then they can gain greater effects from those. And they also don't really have a limitation of how much they can down as well. So hence the Jekyll and Hyde. You can basically have a artificer who downs a whole bunch of bear's endurance, cat's grace potions and things like that, and have them all stack. And you go from an artificer who's primarily an intelligence class to someone who's now beefed their constitution and strength and dexterity way beyond even the best tank in the party, and now they can just Hulk smash the entire thing, which is absolutely hilarious. There was another one as well, that I made a mental note to remember it, and that was a bad idea because now I don't remember it. I should have written it down. Yeah, there was another one in. I don't think it was in Eberron campaign setting or Magic of Eberron. Could have been in Races of Eberron? Or Forge. Could have been the Forge of War too. There was another one which I thought would have been a great example of a artificer archetype for 5th edition. And again, it's like they put no effort into coming up with those classes, clearly, because the entire artificer seems to be based around basically being Iron Man, which is just so fucking lame. What? Why? That just annoys me. I don't. Yeah. But anyway, see, Goths, I've never played the Witcher series, so I don't actually know much about Geralt of whatever. Grim knows a little bit more. She's read a couple of those books, but I don't know anything about Geralt except for the fact that Cavill played him in live action, and That's all I know. I didn't get into the Witcher series. I'm just. I don't mean like the Witcher TV series. I mean the Witcher franchise as a whole. It didn't appeal to me. So yeah. Mm. Okay, now got Centauria. Yeah, well, see, Tori, yeah, like I know about The Witcher, and I know his name is Geralt or Geralt. I can't actually remember how it's meant to be pronounced. It's not. I don't know. It's I'm not really interested, and it's not really my thing. So, yeah. Um. Oh well, chat. Okay. Their game is arguably the best RPG of all time. Yeah, I've heard, but responsive. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, if we're going to talk video games, I can think of a video game I'd rather be talking about. One that's got a crafting mechanic too. One that's got a better crafting mechanic than fucking D&D 5th edition. Technically, one that's got a better crafting mechanic than 4th edition too, because let's be fair, 4th edition didn't have a crafting mechanic either. The DMG was just had nothing to craft with. Just it was so video gamey. But whatever. People like 4th edition apparently. I mean, I shouldn't say that. Like, the system itself isn't horrible. It's a good skirmish system. It's just... it's not a good D&D system. It's not a good role-playing system, I don't think. But, you know, that's me. Well, you're not going to see a table of people playing 4th edition Goths because it's not the current edition. And as we know, people only play the current edition. That's why I keep referring to them as 5eers. And let's be fair, they're not going to freaking try out other systems too. I've made comments in this regard several times too, because freaking... see, I'm going to start going down a dark path instead of just kind of talking about stuff, but yeah, I don't know. Man, that Dragon Age really did have Dragon Age Origins did have a pretty decent crafting system, and the rune slot system too was pretty good. Most of that's actually in the role-playing game too, the TTRPG. Hopefully you get that from Bear Tory, because yeah, no, I'm not going to talk about the new game. Oh my god. I'm not going to talk about the new game. I've seen the googly eye Darkspawn, and pass. No, Gus, we're not having a few words about BioWare in memoriam, because BioWare has been dead since the end of Mass Effect 3? That was the last time most of the people who worked for BioWare that were part of creating all those old games that everyone considers to be the reason why BioWare is a good publisher were all there. They're not there anymore. I don't know. I don't understand why people keep thinking that. I'm going to get into it. Okay, you know what? Fuck it. Fuck it. I'm getting into this. A brand is nothing without the talent that made the brand. Okay? The people that made WotC and D&D big and important and stuff, popular, aren't at WotC anymore. No fucking joke. Have a look. Who invented the D20 system that the original Wizards of the Coast D&D used, right? That original D20 system. Jonathan Tweet, Skip Williams, Monty Cook. None of them are at WotC anymore. Monty is at the very least at Monty Cook Games. Is it Jonathan Tweet is working for another company who's just done a new edition of 7th Sea using the original D20 system. And I'm not sure what Skip Williams is doing, but like, hold on. But yeah, it's but there's the people who created that system aren't there anymore. The people who worked under them, the actual game designers that worked under them, creating all that 3rd edition stuff, aren't there anymore. Likewise, the people who created, Baldur's Gate 2, Neverwinter Nights 2, was it? The original Mass Effect, the original Dragon Age, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. None of those people work for BioWare anymore. You cannot compare BioWare from its old stuff to its new stuff because it's essentially a different animal at the moment. Hold on, sweetie. Go back to bed. I'll be in there in a minute, okay? Okay. So it's not a good. I don't understand why people compare what made things good with how they are now when there's no basis for it, because the people who made that company, that brand, whatever, good, aren't there anymore. Also, for the love of fucking Jesus Christ, goddamn fuck, would cunts please just explain yourselves when you dislike something? All right? I am one of those people who will read it. I will. So if you come out with a comment like, oh, Green Ronin Publishing, well, they've had their things. Could you, I don't know, explain that? Because as far as I can tell, I can't find anything that supports this claim of yours. Likewise, you come up with, oh, Monty Cook's got some baggage attached to him. Oh, really? Did he kill a person? No. So what's the fucking big deal then? You know? Did he harass someone? No. What's the big deal then? Oh, it's got something to do with his personal life? That's got nothing to do with video games or being a game designer? What the fuck is the big issue then? You know? This goes back to that Chris Avalon thing too. Chris Avalon got Me Too'd, right? Basically the guy who wrote the stories for Knights of the Old Republic 2, Sith Lords, Pillars of Eternity, Fallout New Vegas, you know, this guy made great stories, made great video game stories, the best stories. Gets Me Too'd, gets blacklisted. Basically only reported by like 2 people that his charges were cleared because the person who made those allegations against him made them up because she was a friend of his former ex and she didn't like that they broke up. Okay? Fuck that person for ruining his just amazing career, and fuck the industry for keeping him blacklisted. Fuck off, okay? That is just stupid. All right. Now, obviously, since I've got the camera muted, turned off at the moment, I've got oh, I mean, that's fair, but yeah. I would say I've only noticed that goths only in the latest white book from them, and even then, it's not offensively in the way. And yeah. Anyway, I'm going to cut this short. So, welcome to Talking Drek. Hope you've enjoyed the pre-show. And how about we get the topic started with Artificers? Am I right? Crafting